Hey guys, how you doing? Welcome to the video. Welcome to my garage. In this video, I'm going to do an update on Wratchet because Wratchet is at the point where he's ready for a test drive, but I want to show you everything that I did since the last video to get him up to this point. So the last couple of weeks, I've been tying up some loose ends on Wratchet so that I could get him ready for his test drive. All of that stuff is done. As he sits right now, he's ready for a test drive. He hasn't been test driven at all yet, but he's ready. So let me take the camera off the tripod and show you what I've done the last couple of weeks. All right, so a lot of little things. Let me run you around here and show you what I've done. First of all, if you remember, there were not any gussets in here before, and I knew that I always wanted to add some for strength of the joints, but also I wanted to create like a real strong area where the driver and passenger's head go. So I added this gusset, the gusset over there, and then a slightly larger gusset up here. And they're positioned as such that they're out here so that they're nice and strong. This one works really well as a handle when you're getting in here, but I held them back enough that when you're actually sitting in here, your head is about right here. And if you turn and look this way, you don't even really see this. So it's really unobtrusive to the driver. So I got those in there. And then I also welded this up here. There was nothing here before, and I always knew that this was going to be a weak joint. So I welded this in here, and the little triangle, it gives it a bunch of strength, and then this works really well as a grab handle when you're in here, when you're getting situated. And then I don't even know if you guys know, but before there was a slightly different shaped piece up here, and it had a bend in it, and I decided I didn't like that bend because it was a little bit weaker. So I cut that out, and I just welded in these straight gussets on each side for a little bit more strength. Then I welded up the axle for the passenger side. If you remember, I had earlier made an axle for the driver's side, but I never made the axle for the passenger side. So I ordered the parts up and made that up. It's exactly the same dimensions and the same parts as the axle on the driver's side. So I got that all mounted up and put in place. I also went through my wiring harness and I zip tied it about every 3 or 4 inches just so that it holds itself nice and rigid. I don't want to wrap it yet because I'm pretty sure, since this is a custom ECU and a custom wiring harness, there's a good chance I'm going to have to add or remove a couple of wires at first, so I didn't want to actually wrap it. So I've run around everywhere and I've added these zip ties. You can see them running down here, they come up here, they're up under the dash, and then they come back here. Just everywhere they're zip tied because it holds everything together much better. Everywhere has the zip ties, so I got that taken care of. I ran my vent hose. This just runs down, goes down the chassis. It actually joins up with the vent line for the transaxle, and then they just kind of exit at the bottom by the skid plate. And then I welded on a cap to the fuel cell here. This was kind of meant for a 2.5-inch hose to run to a filler neck or something. And I don't know, maybe I'll upgrade to that at some point, but this is how I have it in Mahler. I just have a fill cap here, and I actually kind of like it like that. So I just ordered this cap and then just welded it onto here, and that takes care of that. Then I also had to weld on these body connectors for the roof. I don't know if anybody knew this, but the roof from the very beginning only had this body connector, and I had one over there. So it held it in place, but nothing up here was actually holding it in place. So I added this one and one on the other side, and then I've got one here, and then there's one further in a little bit, and it's the same thing on the other side. There's none in the middle, but because this thing's curved, it's actually pretty strong. So I was thinking about adding something in here, but you know, I figured it didn't really need it. And, you know, I like these body mounts, but they're also a little bit ugly. They're kind of all over the body, like a couple of acne scars or something. But so I put enough on there that I think it should hold it no problem, but I didn't go overboard. I also went throughout everything on the front suspension and everything on the rear suspension, and I just made sure that all of the nuts and bolts were tight. I didn't torque anything and I didn't mark anything, but I just wanted to make sure, because on my test drive, you know, I'm not going to be going 100 miles or anything, but I wanted to make sure that everything was at least nice and tight. So everything on the front has been tightened down, and everything on the back, I mean everything from the sway bar to the heims to the bushings to the spindles to the calipers to the shocks, everything has been tightened down. And then the very last thing I did was installed my battery. It's on the inside of this panel, and actually let me pop this panel off so that you guys can see it. All right, so here is where I installed the battery. Here's my power cables going to it. This is a lithium battery. You can see it's an anti-gravity. These are really cool. I have an anti-gravity battery. Actually, I have two of them in parallel in Mahler. I've been running that for several years. I really like these batteries because they're super duper lightweight. They're insane. This one's better than the one in Mahler because this one, now you can't tell, but there's a little restart button on top, and this one actually monitors its voltage, because if a lithium battery voltage gets too low, it's ruined. So if I leave this on or something and it draws itself down to 10.5 volts, it will open itself up so that it stops draining and it'll save the battery. So these cables run to my disconnect switch. So when the disconnect switch is open, there's nothing draining this battery. And then on the back side here, there's two sets of negative terminals and there's two sets of positive terminals. I bought a real nice battery charger that came with this like extension whip, and I mounted this on one set of the terminals, and then it comes up here, and then I've got a nice little whip here where I can plug in and charge it up. I'll show you the charger in a second. And the reason I really wanted to have a charger on this one is because I know that I'm going to be playing around with the ECU a lot, and when I'm doing stuff like that, it's going to be draining the battery. And so, like, there's no remote charger system on Mahler, but since he's got the GM ECU, I'm never tinkering with that, and I know that I'll always be tinkering this. So I added that, which is a cool feature. So anyways, this is the battery. I got the plate in here welded up. There's a little tray that this sits on, and then these straps hold it in there nice and tight. I do think on my final build, because this has these ugly terminals exposed here, I think what I'll do is I'll make a blanket that wraps around this thing to kind of insulate the terminals, but I'm not going to have that on the test drive. But let me throw this fender back on, and then I'll show you guys the battery charger I got. Alright, so this is the battery charger I bought. It's called the Tornado 4000. And what this is going to do, if I can get it out of the box, is, whew, that's a serious manual. Oh, that's like in 10 different languages. Alright, so this will do lead acid batteries. It'll do small lead acid, large lead acid. It'll do 6 volt and 12 volt. But what's nice about this is this does lithium batteries. Lithium 12 volt batteries, which is what that anti-gravity battery is. You can see there's all the modes right here. But this one here, if you can see that, is 12 volt lithium. So what I can do is hook this up, and then it's got a plug on here that plugs into that pigtail that came with it. It also has a pigtail so that you have alligator clips like you would normally have, but I'm not really interested in that. I want the pigtail. And then when I have Wratchet in here, I'm going to have this hooked up, and it'll essentially be just monitoring that battery. It'll keep it fully charged, and then if I'm messing with it, pulling some amps, when I'm done, this will just top it back up. So let's go hook this up. Okay, so I got the charger. Another thing that's nice along with the pigtail is the cord that it comes with on the charger side is really long, which is nice. So I can take this and just set it on the tire, and then I can take this and plug it into the pigtail that I permanently installed on the battery. Alright, so I've got it plugged into my pigtail here. And then I can obviously plug it into the wall. Alright, let's see. I got a power light, that's good. Now I need to bump this over to the lithium mode. Can you guys see that? Yeah. Alright, now it's on the 12 volt lithium, and then I hit this once, and now it should be charging. You can see it's telling me it's at 25. I think this battery should be 100% charged. Yeah, you can see it's working its way up. I presume this is going to go to 100%. Maybe not. Maybe it's at 75%. Okay, that's cool. Well, this is now just going to sit here and do its thing, and when it tops it off, it'll top it off, and then if I come out here and start playing around with things and pull a little bit of juice, this will just top it back off. So that is some nice insurance. Like I said, I'll have a link to this in the description, and I will have a link to the anti-gravity battery in the description. Okay, so with all of that stuff done, the Wratchet was pretty much ready to go. So I did fire him up, make sure all the fuel injection stuff was still good to go, put fresh fuel in the fuel cell, all that stuff, fired it up. I actually ran it through all 5 gears because I had the rear axle jacked up, so that stuff was good. So it is like ready to go. It is ready to go. However, Wratchet is not street legal, so although I will pull him out into the neighborhood just to do some teeny tiny tests, I'm not actually going to do my test drive in the neighborhood. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to trailer him to an OHV park, an off-highway vehicle park that's about an hour from my house. So that's where I want to do the actual test drive, because I want to do a test drive where I take it out and I can run through a couple of the gears, and I also want to be able to hit some bumps and some off-road stuff, because I also, before I take it back apart and do the paint and the final assembly, I want to find out if there's a couple of things with the suspension that are garbage and I might possibly need to change. So I want to do a test where I can actually, not like, I'm not going to jump it or anything, but I want to test the suspension with some terrain, let's call it that. However, the trailer that I made for hauling the Bajas has never actually been tested with a Baja on it. So I decided the first thing that I should do is do a test trailer with Mauler, because if I had to guess, I would say Mauler's about 500 to 600 pounds lighter than Wratchet. And the Jeep that I'm going to be pulling the trailer with, I've never pulled anything this big. So what I decided to do is do a little bit of a test haul with Mauler, and because he's lighter, so I can see how the trailer does and I can see how the Jeep does, and then well, it'll just be fun having Mauler at the off-road park anyways. So as you can see, I'm all set up to pull Mauler to the OHV park. So that's what I'm hopefully going to do tomorrow, and kind of test everything out. And then when I get back, if all of that stuff is good, then I'll probably start putting pieces in place for the test drive of Wratchet. So you can see the Jeep is all hooked up, ready to go. I'll be honest with you, I designed this trailer purposely. I kept it really small because I knew I was going to be pulling it with the Jeep, and obviously a Jeep is not the greatest tow vehicle in the world, but it's real small. So I can get the Jeep and the trailer connected to the Jeep, parked in this garage with a Baja behind it. So it's really cool because it lets me prep everything the day before. Like I lowered the trailer and I put Mauler on the trailer. I did all that stuff outside, and then I can pull it in, and now it's in the garage for tonight. And then I can just wake up tomorrow and open up the garage door and get the heck out of here. And then when I come back, I can just pull it in here again, and maybe the day after that, I can unrig everything. So that works out pretty nice. But Mauler is all strapped on here, ready to go for tomorrow's adventure. And hopefully that goes as smooth as silk. So that's it for this video, guys. I know it's just an update video and I wasn't actually working on anything, but the last couple of weeks have been so intense with me trying to wrap these things up that I was not putting any time into trying to make a video during it. I was just trying to get it done because it was so many little teeny tiny nick and knack type things. But regardless, I'm in a good place now, and I am going to bring cameras along tomorrow for the run with Mauler. So I hopefully will have some good footage of that stuff that I can hopefully get out later on this week. So that's it for this video, guys. Thanks for watching. I hope you're enjoying the videos, and hopefully I'll see you on the next video. Take care. Hey. No digging, buddy. Sorry. Just eat it. Doug, come on. You're not gonna bury it.